A Sunday evening Joe and Joe weather show, which features winter storm watches and winter weather advisories up for, yes, you've heard it here first, the Northeast. Winter storm warnings in and around the Great Lakes with winter weather advisories surrounding that. And a winter storm conditions continue to rage in the western part of the U.S. What else is new? High wind warnings in parts of the Southwest and into Texas. Wind advisories across the Mississippi and Ohio valleys. So much more, and maybe even the Sunday night rant. Oh my, the Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by
Omni True Value
Hardware.
I was gonna say .com. I'm sorry about
That's
that.
all right.
I'm in the middle of getting some stuff together here.
Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, and Southwest Suffolk County on Long Island, serving the entire New York, New Jersey tri-state area. They're getting ready for spring with topsoil, mulch, and sand, but they've got salt, and you might need some salt come Monday night. So head over to Omni. They've got tons of it. 631-756-1125 is the phone number for the best prices anywhere. The website is...
Now I could say it. OmniTrueValue.com. And hello, Sunday night, Joe.
Yes, hello. It is hard to believe. Usually we are well into a winter at this point where you and I will have done snow maps, and we probably would have had, maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 events that we would have been talking about, possibly even more than that. And we're at the end of February, and this is the first time this entire winter, Joe, that we're actually going to show snow maps, our snow maps, on the air and tell folks what we think is going to happen. Whether it happens or not is another matter, but it's been that kind of a winter.
You know, what's the sad part about this is that to this point in time, Central Park has had all of 0.4 of an inch of snowfall, and it's quite possible that before the next 48 hours are up, New York City will have at least 4 inches or more of snow so far for the winter of 2022,
and there goes that,
2023.
And there goes that record chance.
And there goes the record.
You work so hard. Records like that, you have to really work very, very hard to get to this point where you've got something like, it's one thing to break a daily record or a couple of days, but when you're talking about a record that really has to extend over a period of 4 or 5 months, it's really, really hard to do. So you've got the bulk of the work done and a handful of weeks left at best. You figure, okay, well, I might as well do it. And yeah, you're right. I think it's going to get spoiled. I think this is an instance here where it's primary dying primary low, developing secondary low, and areas I think snow lovers are catching a break because the secondary looks like it wants to form fast enough and shut the warm air off. And I think that could even still be the case for places like Long Island and maybe into northeastern Monmouth County in New Jersey, perhaps catching that deepening of the secondary low. It's a tenuous thing, but models are clearly showing that is what's going to happen.
Now I heard the allusion at the introduction of even a possible rant, and I have a feeling I know what the rant is about.
Oh God, yes.
And you mentioned snow maps, and I think that was the main rant.
It was some of it. It was some of it. There's some of that. It wasn't all of it. Most of it was something else. We'll do that later. All
right.
So why don't we do this? Let me go through the watches and warnings that are up, and I'll put the Weather Service snow forecast map up as well. And then we can, do our stuff and show our stuff and tell everybody what we think and why everybody else is clearly wrong. And let's have at it. All right. So it's the first time for a lot of these areas to see even winter weather advisories. Some of them have already had winter weather advisories and winter storm watches. They are up for northern New Jersey, most of north central and northeastern PA, parts of northeastern most PA under a winter storm watch, as is Orange County, as is Sullivan County, into the Catskills and up into central New York. Basically, along the Hudson River, west of the Hudson, is under a winter storm watch. To the east, it's advisories. Then you go to watches again, western Massachusetts into northwest Connecticut. Watches also up for that area you see for New Hampshire and up into Maine. And we have advisories.
Joe, could you move off the screen? Several people said, I can't see the west.
I'll get to the west. Okay.
Oh, there.
I'll get to the west. I drove 500 miles today, folks. I'm touchy, just so you know. I'm exhausted and I'm touchy. We have advisories for the rest of Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. Winter storm warnings for northern Wisconsin, the northern half of Wisconsin. Advisories for the upper and lower peninsula of Michigan, except the extreme south. Also, warnings extending into a few counties in Minnesota. Advisories further west from there. We've got wind issues across much of New Mexico, West Texas, and on up into southwest Kansas and western Oklahoma. We have a slew of winter storm warnings again in the west from Washington to Oregon, down into California. The orange areas in the Sierra Nevadas are blizzard warnings. We've got winter weather advisories now from the blizzard warnings that were up earlier for the mountains east of LA. Things have settled down a little bit there. And also a few winter storm warnings in western Wyoming, northern Utah, and a few scatterings in northwestern New Mexico and parts of northeast Arizona. So let's talk about what's going on here in the east. And we have the National Weather Service. I've got the Weather Service snow forecast. Now, I don't think all of these numbers have been updated. Takes this on the digital weather. I'm going to try something here. On the digital weather, it sometimes takes a couple of hours after the forecast comes out for the update to show up on the map. So some numbers get updated and some don't. But as of the 6 p.m. version of this map, so they basically have an inch along the south shore of Long Island and 2 to 3 inches along the north shore, 3 and 4 inch amounts in and around New York City. I'm not understanding, by the way, why. I don't know why they left New York City and Long Island out of the advisory. I mean, it's right for them to say, say that they're going to wait till tomorrow and then probably put it up during the day tomorrow. But I don't understand why, if you're going to put advisories up for just about everywhere else, why leave those areas out is beyond me. It's certainly advisory criteria.
I agree. And if they are not confident on a winter weather advisory, here's something that they've not come up with. How about a winter weather watch? Not to be confused with the, possible watches that they put up for winter storms. Instead of winter storm, winter weather. And weren't they supposed to change the whole methodology of when they issue these things?
Yeah, Boston, I know, changed the criteria for some of the counties in western Massachusetts. They raised the numbers to get to a winter storm warning from, I think, 6 to 7 in one county, and I think 7 to 8 in another county. I remember seeing that back in the early fall. Yeah, I guess they're still talking about it. They haven't gotten around to it. Anyway, go into northern New Jersey, north of Route 80, and we're talking about 5 to 7 inches there. Lower amounts from between 80 and 78 on the order of 3 to 4, and then it cuts off sharply after that to maybe a coating at Trenton. What we've seen, by the way, over the last couple of days is as the models have gotten every run for the last 7 or 8 runs has just gotten a hair colder, a hair colder, a hair colder. So it's kind of pushed. We went from thinking maybe the southern edge of any kind of accumulating snow would be at about Route 80 to about Route 78, and now you're starting to wonder whether there'll probably be some snow between 78 and 195 in New Jersey. You see in Pennsylvania, it's mostly a coating to an inch or two, with the exception of when you get up to the north. Go up north of Route 80 and up towards Scranton. You see some 3-inch amounts, and then you get into the Poconos and you see some 5, 6, 7-inch amounts, up to a foot in the Catskills. Across Connecticut, it's basically 4 on the south on the coast and about 7 inland. 3 to 6 in Massachusetts, except 7 or 8 in the west. Amounts also go up as you go north around Albany, 6 to 8, 7, 6 to 8, and also some higher amounts up in parts of New Hampshire and Maine. I think you're going to see a lot of the so-called missing areas that are not that don't have advisories or don't have winter storm watches. When they go to the warnings, you'll probably see them fill a lot of that stuff in. I, I gotta say, I feel like I'm doing a snowstorm, like the first snowstorm of the season in November, because we don't have any storms under our belt. So
That's true.
and that makes it, you're sitting in November and you're forecasting snow, and if you're forecasting accumulating snow, you're always looking at situations that are kind of tenuous, and you don't have that confidence. It's like getting on the bicycle after you haven't ridden on it for a long, long time, like years. You think you may have forgotten how to ride it, and then once you get going, yeah, okay, then you know what you're doing. So I think the numbers that they have are, for the most part, okay. I think the only thing I would maybe take an issue with is Long Island. I went higher than they did. I went a little bit higher. It's not by a lot, but I did go higher. I don't, I think it's going to be several inches there, and maybe even some 4-inch amounts or so on the North Shore. But again, that's me. I don't know what you think of all this.
Well, I'll flip a coin if which one of us goes first with our respective snow maps. Do you want me to go first?
You go first, because I don't have it up on the screen yet, and this gives me an opportunity to bring it up without creating a mess. So there you go. It's all yours.
All right. So there you go. Here's what my thoughts are. However, I did this map. I did. There's still some questions in my mind, Joe. A lot of moving parts, as I mentioned on Facebook yesterday. But for the moment, at least, here's what I'm thinking. Basically, I do these forecasts for the Hudson Valley, but also for environs, surrounding areas. And if you notice, the line that separates 2 to 4 and 4 to 6 inches is pretty much where Interstate 287 is in south central Westchester. I am thinking that not only southern Westchester, but also the Bronx, well, a good part of New York City, I think, is going to be in the 2 to 4 inch category. And also with that, along the north shore of Long Island, possibly 2 to 4 inches, 2 to 4 inches for the coastal plain of Connecticut. And then as you go north of 287, I said a general 4 to 6 inch accumulation possible, with the exceptions being in this zone here, northern Orange County, Ulster, and Sullivan counties, where the high terrain areas above, let's say, 800 or 1,000 feet, could see as much as 6 inches or even more than that. And it's also here in the northwestern part of Connecticut, and also in and around the Berkshires. We also have high terrain areas which may induce a 6 to 8 inch snowfall total. But generally speaking, for much of the Hudson Valley, on into a good part of northern New Jersey and northeastern Connecticut, I'm thinking, 4, maybe 5 or 6 inches. Now, now that I've shown this, I want to bring into play the things that are bothering me about this forecast. Let me just get rid of the this here. Screen sharing has stopped for the moment. For the moment, it has stopped. So let's go to the GFS, the 12Z GFS. And before I even show this, this is the 300 to 700 millibar relative humidity panel. But I want to go first with lower dynamics here and show you what looks to be a very significant line of phroniogenesis or omega atmospheric energy is a line here. This is for 18Z tomorrow. And if we move forward here, look at that. Now, all of this energy is going to be splattered all over the immediate New York City metropolitan area at 0Z at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. But I also have been looking at the NAM, the North American model, which shows 3 different levels of relative humidity at 3 different parts of the atmosphere. And the lowest level, Joe, at 0Z tomorrow night is something like 61%. Now, I've always felt that you need, at least on the R1 of the North American model, the lowest level of the atmosphere for relative humidity and for the precipitation to reach the ground. I always felt that you need at least an 80%. Now, sometimes it could be 75 or so, but 61% is pretty darn low and pretty dry. And so I noted on Facebook, I said, I'm thinking that the precipitation is going to begin locally sometime between 4 and 7 o'clock tomorrow evening. But if those lower relative humidity levels are going to be that low, it would not be surprising if we had virga, let's say, during the late afternoon or the beginning of tomorrow evening, and a lot of that stuff melted or evaporated before reaching the ground. So I'm wondering that maybe, just maybe, for some, we may have to wait until after 7 o'clock before we may see the first of whatever, depending upon the column where you are, or the atmospheric, the thermal situation wherever you are watching right now in the New York metropolitan area. It could be rain, it could be sleet, or it could be wet snow. But that's the first question in my mind, is when the precipitation is actually going to fall and reach the ground. And I'll tell you right now that if it waits, the longer it waits, the more our chances for, getting up to the 5 and 6 inch range is going to be muted by the fact that a lot of that stuff is going to be lost as it's coming down to the ground and evaporating. But notice here, as I said, at 7 o'clock tomorrow evening, this area, this very tight area of Omega, is moving through the New York City area. And by the time we get to 1 a.m., it has weakened somewhat and has moved off to the north and east. Now, this suggests to me that whatever we're going to get out of this, the heaviest by far should come between 7 p.m. tomorrow night and 1 a.m. on Tuesday morning. You say, but you were just talking, Joe, about the fact that maybe nothing is going to be happening at 7 because the air is too dry. That, too, is a complicating factor here. But I also want to show this. This is the moisture field at 700 to 300 millibar, the relative humidity. And take a look here, Joe, and everybody.
Just bring the map a little higher. There you go.
Yeah, here it is. Here it is. At 0Z tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, you see the main batch, the darkest shade of blue, is all over Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey. There's a little bit of an opening here in the immediate New York City area. But this indicates there's your moisture to create, a goodly amount of precipitation. And then you remember the area of Omega right here. So the thought is that in this zone, we may be looking at the heaviest amount of precip. Now, watch what happens at 1 a.m. We jump 6 hours, and look at that. All of that heavy-duty moisture has now shifted away from New York and up into central and northern most of New England. And by the time we get to 7 o'clock on Tuesday morning, the brown indicating a nice drying trend. That's not out of the question in the lowest levels of the atmosphere that we may still have some lingering flurries, but
or drizzle,
depending upon the temperatures. But it seems to me that whatever we get out of this, the heaviest is going to come between 7 p.m. and 1 a.m. tomorrow night. And the question I have is, exactly when is it going to begin? Because we have to scour out all of that dry air to allow for the moisture to actually physically reach the ground. And then if it starts as rain or sleet in some areas, we have to wait for the atmosphere to cool.
Which it probably will do relatively quickly.
But again, I think that's going to be the key to how much inevitably is going to fall in most areas. It's going to be during that time frame between 7 p.m. tomorrow night and 1 a.m. tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning, because after 1 a.m., I think whatever's going to be falling is going to be diminishing in intensity. So if we're going 4 to 6 inches, my thoughts are we could easily see a majority of that come if everything falls into place between 7 p.m. and 1 a.m. We might even see, I mean, my God, I'll show one more time that zone of Omega. I mean, this is capable of putting down maybe an inch or even 2 inches per hour. So this is where the whole ball game may be between 1 a.m. and 7 p.m. and 1 a.m. And what's good about this is that all the other models seem to line up with this. For example, let me show you the European, and the European is showing not as strongly as what the and this is actually what is this the yeah, it is the 12Z. It's not as strong and it's not as tightly compressed or compact as the GFS, but it shows pretty much that it's in the same area. 7 o'clock tomorrow night. Now the European goes in 3-hour intervals, but you can see here it's lifting out and away already. This is 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock on Monday night. This is 1 a.m. on Tuesday, and again by 4 a.m. on Tuesday, this is all off to the east. So there's my contention, Joe. You're really looking for the time when we pile on whatever we're going to get out of this. It should come, I think, between 7 p.m. tomorrow night and 1 a.m. on Tuesday morning.
Okay. Now, I just want everybody to know, as you unshare,
yes,
I just want everybody to know that Joe and I have not spoken a word. We have not chatted on Messenger. We have not texted each other all day today. The first time I spoke to Joe was about 2 minutes before showtime. I saw that snow map for the first time. He has not seen mine. Okay. So on that, knowing that as a setup, okay, I'm going to bring up my snowfall forecast map that I did. And I was kind of laughing a little bit under my breath when I saw yours, because I'm thinking, since you and I are oftentimes, we both have said how we are both attached to the hip. My map and your map are pretty much the same. I mean,
yeah.
really, particularly over Long Island, I've got this 2-inch line that I drove, inland of the South Shore. Maybe not as far inland as you have it, but it's there. I've got a 4-inch line along the North Shore, crossing right through New York City, sort of in that 2 to 4-inch zone. And then I just sort of broad brushed a 6-inch area for the Hudson Valley north of 84, Connecticut, central, interior Connecticut north of 15, a little bit further than that, but let's use 15 as the line, and then going up into central Massachusetts. So it's about as identical as you could get for two people that have made didn't consult each other at all. I haven't spoken to Joe since Thursday,
Right.
so we're either going to be geniuses or idiots. And we'll find that out on Tuesday, or hopefully not tomorrow, but we'll find it out on Tuesday.
That's why I mentioned as a disclaimer after I showed my snow map, I said there's still, I think, a few problems, but and that's the thing that worries me about this is, again, the dry air that the NAM is indicating. But again, the NAM has been off on that sometimes, and this may be one of the occasions, especially if you're going to drive all of that atmospheric energy. That area of moisture may come in like a wall around 7 o'clock tomorrow night, and that certainly would be intense enough to get all the way down in spite of the dry air to literally push it down or force it down. A lot of forcing going on here, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. And interestingly, also, Joe, right about that time tomorrow night at 7:35, we'll be coming on the air, and maybe we'll have something interesting to talk about or exciting to talk about.
We'll be live. We'll be live casting right through the beginning of the event, so maybe we'll have some good, exciting observations and radars to look at. Snow Weenie Garo Vestas hitting super chat. Thank you, Garrow. And he says, Snowy categorically excited, well worth a super chat hit for Joe and Joe due to North Jersey finally getting snow in the Catskills, which is where he shall be. Catskills have had it's below normal snowfall in the Catskills, but they still haven't done terrible up there. Although I think Chuck Cardillo would probably, since he lives up there, he would know best. I don't see him on the chat board tonight, so he's probably busy prepping up for this particular storm. I know one thing he's
And
happy about is there's no ice. This is not going to be. There shouldn't be any icing, issues here. We don't have any freezing rain to worry about. Maybe in places just to the south where it starts off as some sleet in the mix, but other than that, um, oh, Chuck is there. Other than that, this is snow and not much, and that's it.
and right under the Garo Vesta's very nice comment on Super Chat, we have two comments. Janet Dunn, haha, Joe R. You drew the line between 2 to 4 and 4 to 6 in Northeast New Jersey, right over my house. Joe C. usually does the same. Move it a tick south, please. LOL. And the next comment after Janet's is Adam Lowe saying Joe is finally going to get his snowblower out. And I want to tell all of you, if you didn't see it, about 4 days ago on my Facebook pages, I wrote an apology to my snowblower. I went up to it and there's a picture there, and I said, I really feel bad. I said, you've been there whenever I needed you in the past, and I haven't called on you yet once this year. I said, who knows? Maybe sometime this winter, maybe who knows, even in April, I might be asking your help. But right now, sleep. I apologize. And ever since I put that up, and especially today, I've had not a few people, post on Facebook saying, you had to open your big mouth, didn't you, Joe Rayo? You had to post the picture of the snowblower. You had to say you hadn't used it all this year. I'm sorry. People are blaming. They're blaming me. The snow hate.
Okay, folks, I'm sorry about that. Took a hit and knocked everything out. And now, hopefully, we're going to get back on the air here momentarily. I will get Joe Rayo on board here in a moment, so just give me a second. And this is, of all nights for this to happen, it had to happen tonight. I don't know what it is. I just got the same type of error that I got the last time with a Microsoft message saying, something went wrong, so we're going to reboot your computer. That's lovely. Okay. Well, hang in there, folks. I think this has to do with the broadband. Must have taken a hit someplace. I don't know if you guys have been hearing me up until now, but we're going to get Joe Rayo back in just 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. So if you guys can let me know. Okay, just let me know, please. Oh, you hear me? Great, that's good. So now let me get Joe up on here. Oh, good Lord. There we go. So that's me. Now let's get Rayo back. Now hang on. I got to send Joseph a new Zoom link. We should be able to get going again. I really apologize, guys. Can you see me? Okay? Can you see me? I know you said you can hear me, but can you see me? I just have to wait for Messenger to load. Yeah, I know, Ross. I'm doing it. Thank you. All right, this is taking forever. Okay, finally. All right. So he should be back in a second. Trish Sparacchio, thanks for hitting super chat. Most appreciated. Again, just give me be patient, folks. I just sent him the Zoom link, so he should have it momentarily, and we can get back to doing all of this. Let me get Zoom here. And we'll get Joe up on the screen as soon as I see. There he is. Okay. We should be on our way in a minute.
Hi.
Hi. Had another wonderful crash like we did the other night. Of all nights for this to happen, it had to happen tonight. But you know what? And let's just roll because I have no guarantees that it's going to happen again. And I'm just going to get my phone away from here in case that's the problem. You never know. Interfering with the broadband signal. Okay.
All right, well, calm down. Calm down.
All right. Do you remember what I was saying? Because I don't.
I was actually what I was
saying.
You were
talking about your snowblower.
People are blaming me for the fact that I posted that apology to my snowblower on Facebook a few days ago, and since then, people have snow haters, people who do not like snow, are coming at me today saying you had to open your big mouth, right? You had to say something. Winter was going so wonderful until you put that stupid thing up about your snowblower and apologizing to it for it hadn't been used. And this included, by the way, the town supervisor of Putnam Valley. The town supervisor wrote to me this afternoon and said, if we have a snow situation like we did this winter, next winter, in other words, if we have virtually no snow next winter up to this point in time, keep your mouth shut.
Super chat hits from Enrique Lopez. Joe and Joe back. Yes, we are. Let's hope we don't disappear again. And Leon Probitsky hitting super chat. Thank you very much. By the way, we're up over 100 likes. Maybe we could shoot for 200 tonight. Thank you. Those of you who've hit the like button. If you haven't and you like the show, hit the like button. And if you're lurking in the background, use your Gmail account to subscribe to the Joe and Joe Weather Show on my YouTube channel. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Join the chat, become part of the conversation. We're on Monday through Thursdays at 7:35, Sundays at 11 a.m., except for today when we move the show to 7 p.m. All right, I'm going to bring up the satellite loop, and while that's loading, just want to address a couple of questions. So, someone asked earlier about whether there could be some upside to this. And I think the answer to that is yes. I think there could be some upside. If we get, one of the things I'm going to be looking at closely tomorrow is, what does the radar actually look like? The other issue is, that this low-level cold air that's going to be bleeding southward tomorrow. The models have been trying to wedge it a little bit further south with every run. And, there's pluses and minuses to that because you have the dry air issue as well. And when the secondary develops, that's going to be critical because sometimes secondaries can develop and basically take all the precip, and the precip that comes in from the west starts to fall apart, and the precip on the ocean starts to get going, and you sort of miss out on that. So I want to see how that all tends to come together tomorrow. So if you get a few things to go your way, then yeah, I think there could be a little bit of upside. I don't think there's a lot of upside here. I don't think you would disagree with that. I think there's a little bit of upside that could happen, especially on the southern part of it where the amounts are lower. But I don't think this is something that's going to turn into a widespread 9, 10, 12-inch plus event. At least I hope it doesn't.
No, I don't think, people on the chat board have been asking, can this possibly be moving, or possibly could it move slower? In other words, what they're thinking and hoping is that we'll see more in the way of snowfall. But I really don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's going to be a fairly progressive weather maker. Now, the thing that I noted is that the generally speaking, there is a bit more in the way of moisture, more in the way of quantitative precipitation being forecast by many of the models today, as opposed to the run last night. But again, we're still not quite there yet. We still have a couple of more runs to go, tonight's runs and also tomorrow. And really, after tomorrow, we stop looking at the runs and start looking, as you said, Joe, at the radar, the positioning of
Yeah.
where the clouds are, and
And the
start taking
obs.
note about and the obs, and start
Yeah.
taking note of exactly what is happening, where's it going, and maybe we would look at the models, let's say the 12Z models tomorrow, and taking the latest radar and trying to line things up and seeing whether or not the moisture is moving faster or slower, or whether or not everything is right on target.
If you start seeing moderates break out at the onset of precip on the southern flank, like in central Jersey, let's say down along Route 195, you get, for whatever reason, you get some moderates that break out there. If you see some snows breaking out, maybe a little bit further south in Pennsylvania, maybe if Philadelphia starts off as snow for a brief time before it goes over to rain, those could be clues as to what it will look like during the early evening hours when, as Joe pointed out, you get into that strong forcing, that F-gen, that the frontogenesis that's moving on through, and then we'll see what happens overnight as the secondary really gains control here, to what happens to the moisture field. Does it hold together? Does it fall apart? Those are all very big questions with regards to tomorrow. Meanwhile, you can see on the U.S. satellite loop a burst of thunderstorms there developing across western Kansas down into the Oklahoma Panhandle and into northwest Texas. I haven't really looked at what SPC is doing today, so I might as well do that now. The Storm Prediction Center has a moderate risk. Boy, I got to pay attention more of this. Wasn't paying attention. A moderate risk, Joe, of severe weather tonight in Oklahoma to the Kansas state line and in a few counties in northwest Texas, and enhanced risk that covers areas in southern Kansas to southeast Missouri and across much of the rest of Oklahoma. That is coming, by the way, with a 5 to 10% tornado risk. So there is severe weather here. This system, as it's moving through the Central Plains at the moment, is producing mostly rain. There's hardly any snow with this. There's no real cold Arctic air around. So it's only when it gets up into the Great Lakes, and by that time the primary low is going to reach its peak intensity and then start weakening rapidly, which is why we've been seeing the snow areas in the east move further south. Now for tomorrow, we have a slight risk in Illinois, Indiana, and western Ohio, and that is also with a 2% tornado risk there. And come Tuesday, we are done with the severe weather risk. So interesting from that respect that we have this severe weather risk going on. Back to the satellite, you can also see out in the west, if you look off the west coast, there's a really impressive looking swirl there getting ready to come in. And we're talking more big snows there that are going to be going on in the Sierra Nevadas, as we showed you earlier on the watches and warnings map. On the radar, let's get a quick refresh here. There are some, well, before we go to the west, there are some snow showers in upstate New York in the Adirondacks and also along I-90, mostly light stuff, and a few scattered areas up in the rest of New England. We've got some patchy rain that has developed in Missouri, northern Arkansas, western Tennessee. And here's look at this, Joe. Look at all these severe thunderstorm warnings. It's a compact line. It doesn't, sometimes you could see this extend for 1,000 miles. This one's a lot shorter, but it's got a punch to it. Got two working tornado warnings there in Oklahoma. And
Right.
one, two, three, four, five, six, 7 severe thunderstorm warnings. This is as of 7:43 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday the 26th, in case you're watching this on an overnight replay, with a glass of liquor. Uh, so just want to let you know. When it comes to severe weather, in all seriousness, make sure you go to your local National Weather Service office forecast page. You can do that by going to weather.gov to check to see what the severe weather threats are. And we've got Jason Kaplan hitting Super Chat tonight, hoping this comes to fruition for even Monmouth County. Thanks for the great analysis. Thank you for being here and for your support. Meanwhile, here we go in Southern California. We've got some big rains around San Francisco starting to move into the Sierra Nevadas. We got snows up in Idaho and northern Nevada and into western Montana. Also some blotchy precip moving into Washington and Oregon. The folks in the West, in these places, Joe, not too far outside of LA, that got snow. I saw some videos of snow falling. I mean, this has had to have been one of the most surreal weather periods that they have seen, and certainly one of the most difficult winters when it comes to not only just snow, but the rain that they endured for those 2 weeks back in late December, January, and then to deal with this. It's been insane, the kind of winter that they've had there in the western part of the U.S.
And the people at the Climate Prediction Center, the people who were responsible for the winter forecast, are kind of like shaking their heads, and they're not going to want to be reminded of this. But I'll remind them right now that they went with the fact that that La Nina was going to continue for one more full winter, which it did not. We saw that thing beginning to collapse in December, for God's sake. But they said, well, because of La Nina, we're expecting the West to continue in unfavorable conditions for alleviating the drought, and it will be yet another winter of abnormally dry or unusually dry weather. Ouch, ouch! That has been nothing like what they have actually occurred. And I mean, my God, we had low pressure literally going down in the past few days, down the Pacific coast, and that was the storm that again led to the outbreak of unusually cold air, and also the occurrence of snow within the environs of Los Angeles. The blizzard. You're right. This has not been a winter that was very predictable at all, either short term or long term. Incredible.
Yeah, it really is. And you know, doing the long range, as I've said many times, at least from my standpoint, people when they ask me about stuff 3 or 4 months in advance, and I've been very honest about the fact I can't get my head around it. I just can't. It's way too technical. You have to, you're not only just looking at what's going on at the different levels of the atmosphere, but you have to look at the ocean water temperatures. You have to look at stuff that's going on in the Indian Ocean, in the South Atlantic, the South Pacific, over Antarctica, over the Arctic, and the stratosphere, and all the rest of it. You got to somehow mush it all together and come up with a sort of a broad outline of what the weather's going to be like over a 2 month period, 3 month period, 6 month period. I just can't do that. It's just not my thing. Rainfall, liquid precip wise, is this going to be a busy week? Because we have another storm system for the end of the week, and I'm going to tell you right off the bat. Don't ask me because I've really hardly looked at.
Can I just say something about that too? I mean, it isn't enough that we finally, for the people who've been waiting for snow, it isn't enough that we already have a potential snowfall coming our way, first one of the season for tomorrow night. But I've been getting, people have been saying, wait until you see what's going to happen at the end of the week. Oh my God, look at and even here on the chat board, I forget who it was. I just happened to come on board like a couple of hours ago, and somebody was making a big deal out of, oh my God, there's going to be a big storm, lots of snow and everything else. And as I've been saying this over and over again, what inevitably is going to happen with that system at the end of the week, we don't know yet, because that system has to wait for whatever this system is going to do. And as I said at the very beginning of our session tonight, this system still has some moving parts to it, things that could, change and go wrong or malfunction. And we really won't know the story about what's going to happen
No, and
with
then
the next system on
no,
Friday until this system gets out of the
right.
way.
And by the way,
Yeah,
there's a system in between on Wednesday that's part of all of this too.
right,
You
right.
know,
That's another
so
minor
this
system.
secondary low is gonna is gonna play a role. You've got this system in the middle on Wednesday that's going to play a role. You've got a big high that's coming down that's going to play a role, and you've got the energy itself that's coming into the west that's going to play a part here. And yeah, we can't. It's just too many moving parts. Even though we're only talking about 5 days from now, there's too many moving parts ahead of it. So we need to just kind of wait on that.
It's like the atmosphere is playing a chess game with the various short and midterm computer models. The computer models are moving, their players on the board in a manner that they think that they're trying to anticipate what is going to happen. But ultimately, it's nature who says, "Oh no, you made a wrong move over there. We're going to move this way instead of that way, or whatever." And that's basically it. And I'm getting tired. I mean, from 10 days out, people have been highlighting or pointing to March 3rd and 4th. That's going to be the big one. That's going to be the man. It's driving me crazy.
I know.
It's driving me crazy.
I hear you.
And I also have to say that Dr. Cohen may have helped out a little bit because he made an allusion to, I think, Mrs. Ann Sambles at the European was suggesting that it was going to be a major possible snowmaking system several days ago. But he was basing that on the ensembles. He wasn't basing that on the operational.
And you know what? It may be a major system, and it may wind up being a major snow system, but it may not necessarily wind up being a major snow system for eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England.
Right.
It could be out somewhere else. We'll get into that. Big precip amounts in the west. You see up and down the west for the next 7 days, several to many inches. A lot of that is snow. No shocker there. We've got big rain amounts in the Ohio and Tennessee Valley on the order of 1.5 to 3 inches over the next 7 days. 1.5 rains across liquid precip across New Jersey to Long Island and southernmost New England. Pretty large area of 1/2 inch to 1.25 inches that extends west of the Mississippi down to the central Gulf states and runs all the way up into northern New England. WPC, Joe, the probability of at least two mints in one. So let's look because we haven't had to use this map very much either. So we have I always like to use the light blue, the 50% line, as a pretty good bet that you're going to get the 2 inches, and that cuts across the north shore of Long Island, south of Route 78 in New Jersey. Of course, you start to get into the reds, you're talking about 80, 90, 100% probability of at least 2, and you see that covers a good chunk of upstate New York and New England. The probability of at least 4, which I think is worth looking at. They've got actually a 10% probability of 4 for Long Island, and between and south of Route 78, the 50% line for 4, Joe, cuts right across Tremont Avenue in the Bronx, okay, to Riverdale, and then into North Jersey, somewhere between Route 80 and 78. And of course, you see where the salmon color and the darker red shows up, and that's 80% or higher probability of at least 4 in the Catskills, the northwest corner of New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, well north of Route 84, north of 84 in northwest Connecticut, western Mass, and southern Vermont. Also up in parts of New Hampshire and Maine. Now, on the long range, there is something of note in the long range that I think is worth pointing out. Since we brought up the system at the end of the week, you should know as soon as I get these borders put on the map here. So this is Thursday into Friday. You see that stripe of 10 to 30 from Kansas east across northern Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, western PA. Friday into Saturday, Joe, they've got 30 to 50% right along I-95, pretty much, and north and west. And 10 to 30 on Long Island, 10 to 30 for coastal and southern New Jersey, down into Delaware, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, and into western Virginia. 50 to 70 now showing up in northeastern PA and up into the Catskills. And, they got that 30 to 50 going all the way up into the southern half of Maine. So WPC seems to be looking at this and saying, well, maybe. And then, of course, by the time we get to Saturday and Sunday, this thing is going to be gone. And there you have it. So HRRR time. We have enough. The 0Z's not out far enough. Is not out at all yet. So got the 23Z. So we're going to go back to the 18Z HRRR. I thought this was interesting, Joe. The 18Z HRRR was cold. It's a little slower on the precip. Doesn't get to New York City until about 7 o'clock. And you actually see there's a little bit of rain on the front end, which underscores the fact that temperatures tomorrow will probably be in the mid to upper 30s. Maybe even a few spots getting to 40, but that's not difficult for the atmosphere to correct if you've got the dynamics. The HRRR's got snow pretty far south into New Jersey. I think this is one of those, if it shows up looking like this is where you could wind up with a little bit of upside. There's this first arm that goes by, then there's a second burst of precip, and you see the precip, the big showers and thunderstorms offshore. That's with the secondary. So this is at 1 a.m. Not too shabby looking, if that's correct. It never changes over on Long Island, never changes over in New York City. Just maybe ends as a little bit of spotty drizzle by the time we get to about 7 or 8 in the morning. And then there's one last little surge of stuff that comes through, I guess, with the primary low in the upper trough that is still hanging around Lake Ontario. But you can see the closed isobar that forms off the Delaware, New Jersey coast there on Tuesday morning. That's the secondary low. The faster that forms, the faster the cold air, the warm air gets shut off, and that's what you're seeing here. That's what the HRRR is telling you here is going to happen. That it's going to happen faster, and that the cold air is going to be more important.
And if there is such a rapid increase in intensity of the secondary, there might be perhaps a stray thunderstorm, maybe.
Perhaps.
In a few stops, perhaps, yeah. Again, we're talking about something that's out over the ocean, but still is sometimes we have seen systems like this, throw back a little bit of convection, and that may very well happen. And that'll be interesting to watch on Go 16 tomorrow, Joe, is to see whether or not there are thunderstorms bubbling up somewhere along the Delmarva or Delmarva Peninsula, South Jersey coastline, and that could be a fair signal of. Back in the day, Joe and I, we'd be sitting by the teletype and drawing up what we call a sectional and looking for the magic pressure falling rapidly at various stations. But, the other way to do it now is you can take a look and see if there are any thunderstorms popping, because that certainly is a benchmark of an intense storm.
I'm going to run through the RGEM model, and then Joe Ray is going to do a few soundings for us. As requested by David Schwartz. How good has the HRRR been, as Adam Keston? Not good. Not good. Neither has the NAM, for that matter. So be very leery. I've been sort of just kind of sticking with what the global models have been showing. But I was looking at the RGEM yesterday, and it picked up on a few things that later the global models picked up on, and I'm just looking at it here. This is at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. Snow just about breaking out over Long Island and southwest Connecticut, snowing over a good chunk of New Jersey and eastern PA. And you started to see these patches of dark blue snow at around 10 o'clock. And then just south of that, you change over to rain, clearly. And that holds on. You don't get into any rain here. I mean, I ran this through. This is at 5 a.m. on Tuesday, Joe, Tuesday morning. It's still all snow on Long Island. All snow in North Jersey, a little bit of rain south of Route 78, and then it just kind of peters out after that. So, for what it's worth, I think at least it gives me some confidence in terms of, what my forecast is. And since my forecast and Joe's forecast are identical, we're looking this, we're hoping that this is what winds up being right.
Well, they did thermodynamics on the using the wonderful tropical tidbits. Thank you very much, Mr. Levy, for that. Shows that initially, when this system begins moving in on us tomorrow evening, the 32-degree line is pretty much either on top of where I am or maybe even a little ways to the north, and then it drops. It goes southward during the course of the night tomorrow night. and never really has a chance to recover, never really has a chance to go back to the north and maybe change everything from snow back over to rain. So once the cold air comes in, it's I think it's pretty much there to stay. And so if you see rain and then all of a sudden sleet and change to snow, I don't think you're going to change back, even if you live on Long Island.
So you got some soundings?
I've got tropical tidbits up. Just tell me where you would like the sounding to be.
All right. Well, you know what? Let's do the sounding. I'd like to see Islip, and then let's do a sounding for White Plains, and then let's do a sounding for how about Caldwell?
Here's Islip. Wait a minute. Sorry about that. I'm not sharing the screen, am I?
And I'm off the screen.
And you just disabled participant screen sharing.
I did?
Yes, you did.
Oh no, you know why? Because
when we came back, yeah,
right,
that's blah, blah, blah.
After that horrific.
Yes.
Of all, it was so. I don't know how I didn't lose my temper, but go ahead.
There you go. Boom. So here's Islip. This is so, I think about being in Stan Getzelman's class back at City College, and him, giving us like a bunch of TTAAs and TTBs to plot.
Shutter.
And here, I just had to push a button, and boom, here we go. Or here we are. So we start down here at the bottom. I see 43 degrees Fahrenheit right here on the red, and 36. I got to make this larger. Even my eyeglasses, I'm having trouble seeing. Yes, it's tough getting old, Joe. And you could see how the as you go up in altitude here, the temperatures are going to be getting a bit colder. Where are we here? I'm totally confused here as to what I'm trying to look at. But you can see as you get higher up into the atmosphere, here's the pressure. You get up to like the 700 millibar level, and you have temperatures at 700 millibars of minus 20. I believe the green is for wet bulb or dew point, or the dew point temperatures.
Right.
The dew point temperatures are indicating minus 20 at 700 millibars, and the actual ambient air temperature, which is starting off at 43 degrees here. But what sounding did I use? I didn't. I started as of this afternoon, as of 18Z today. That's
right.
why the temperature is at 43 degrees. But did you want to start at 18Z today, or were you looking for something?
Pick tomorrow. Pick tomorrow evening at 8:00 when precip's just getting underway. And while you're finding that, David Fuller hitting super chat that he wants a sounding for Monmouth County.
Now wait a minute. Now this is the 18. You want to use 18Z, or you want me to go back to 12Z?
It's as good as that. Use 18Z.
Okay. All right. So tomorrow evening we were the 24. Would that work? No. One more. Boom. There you go. All right. Now we're back on track here. I'm so confused. So back to Islip we go. The approximate area of Islip. Requesting sounding. Round and round she goes, and where she stops. Oh, come on. Is everything going wrong tonight, Joe?
I guess.
All right, there we go. Oh, thank God. So, yes, 35 degrees, the actual ambient air temperature. This would be at the moment when precipitation, as you can see in this box, the inset in the upper right. You see the snow is just about arriving at Islip MacArthur Field tomorrow night at about 7 o'clock. 35 degrees on the ambient air temperature. And as we go higher up into the atmosphere, notice it looks like, Joe, we have a little bit of a warm tongue here, because we see the temperatures and the dew points drop off quite a bit at about 900 millibars, which is approximately 1,500 feet or 2,000 feet.
Roughly.
And then as we go higher up, the temperatures actually begin to climb a little bit, both in the dew point and the actual ambient air temperature. In fact, at 700, the temperatures are approaching 10 Celsius or 50 Fahrenheit, both the ambient air temperature and the dew point temperature. So there may be a little bit of a warm slot or a warm tongue right about here. And then as we get higher above 700, then we see a gradual decline in the temperature. And when we go way, way up to like 300 millibars, that's when we're talking about temperatures of minus 10 or so, both Celsius for both dew point and for air temperature. So that's islip.
Certainly
So where
argues
else did
it certainly argues that if it start that it could start maybe as a little bit of, especially if you don't have a lot of intensity right away, that you could start with a little bit of rain.
Right, right. And I said that before. Maybe rain. It all depends upon the temperature, the local temperature, the temperature of the column. Now you want the White Plains, correct?
Take a look at White Plains.
We'll go to White Plains, and you see here 32 for the air temperature, 21 Fahrenheit for the dew point temperature, and again you see a bit of a warming as you get up past, let's say, 900 millibars. And in fact, at 700 millibars, the temperature is hovering closer to like 4 or 5. So temperatures are like around 40 degrees Fahrenheit, both dew point and actual dry bulb temperatures at 700. And again, it's not until after you get past 700 that the temperatures ever so slowly begin to decline more quickly as you go past 500 and into the really cold zone, like 250 millibars. By then, the temperature is at like minus 10, minus 12 Celsius. So again, a little bit of a warming taking place in the mid levels of the atmosphere predicted. So again, yeah, maybe a little rain or sleet up in the White Plains area. Now, where's the next one? Monmouth County?
Yeah, so David Fuller wanted Monmouth County, so pick a spot in Monmouth County.
All right, so we'll pick one right about over here, right about there. And again, there you go. Again, a little bit of a warming trend. Again, right around 700, 800 millibars. So, Joe, there's like a little bit of a warm tongue at mid levels, and then you have to go up beyond 500 millibars to see the temperatures really cool down or cool off a bit. But right about here, probably somewhere around, I don't know, 4, 5, 6,000 feet, temperatures actually warm up a bit. All the way in some cases here in Monmouth County, the temperature at almost 700 millibars gets all the way up to about 10 Celsius or 50 degrees Fahrenheit, both at the dew point and the dry bulb temperatures.
So do one. This is at 8 o'clock, correct?
This is 7 o'clock tomorrow evening.
All right.
Yeah.
So you know what? Go to well, now the next one for the GFS, there's no in between, so we can't go to 10 o'clock on that. I go to, just for laughs, just go to New York. Just do New York City at 1 a.m. 6Z.
Okay. So here's 6Z. Let's go to New York. And if you notice here, and this is more a function of the algorithm that has been built into the model in terms of temperatures to show you, what's the green is the rain, the blue is the snow, a little patch here of ice. But actually, if you go, let's say, we get to near Central Park, requesting and sounding, now right here, it's 34 degrees, according to the dry bulb sounding. In fact, the dry bulb and the wet bulb dew point sounding almost are exactly the same. And once again, you see, here comes that warming, reaching to almost 10 Celsius or 50 at about 750 millibars. And then after that, everything kind of steadies out, slows down, and then starts cooling off again, especially so once you get above 500 millibars. But again, even as late into the time frame or late into the event as 6Z or 1 a.m., there's still that little bit of a warm tongue aloft in the mid levels.
I'm trying to get I got the European here. Just want to see something because I could pull up a sounding here on the European. Now I just pulled one up. I'm gonna bring it up on the screen in a moment. So this is roughly at about where New York City is, and this would be at 10 o'clock. Okay, and the European is cold. It's cold. It's the cold. It's been the coldest of all the models for the last few days. So on its sounding, Joe, it has a temperature of 33 and a dew point of 30 at 10 o'clock. It does have that warm nose. I don't think it's quite as pronounced as the GFS has it, but it does have the warm nose. The temperature's below freezing, but it's a snow profile here on the European at 10 o'clock tomorrow night at New York City.
Right.
I've got the position I took might have been actually a shade south of New York City. 40.7. What is New York City's latitude and longitude offhand? Do you know?
Yes, I do.
I
40.
knew. I knew if there was anybody that would know that, you would. Go ahead.
Do you want it in decimals, or you want it in minutes and
you can go,
degrees and minutes?
You can go. I put up 40.78 and 73.97.
Perfect.
Really? I hit it right on the. I hit
pretty much.
I just got as close as I could to New York City with my little cursor and hit it. So I must have hit it just right. Okay, I'm proud of myself then.
Yeah.
All right. So that's good. And since I got it up, you might as well see this is the 18Z European that I used, and the snow map, for what it's worth, gives mostly kind of lines up with what we have on our maps. Actually, has the area of an inch, a bit more to the south, which is kind of interesting. The European all along has been trying to show a fairly cold atmosphere. So I think now, because we are at 10 minutes after 8 and we've been going for a while, why don't we just take a quick look? Because admittedly, I haven't really spent a lot of time looking at this for this next system for the end of the week. So and the one in between. So let's take a look at that, and also let's also look at what's going on in the West. Meanwhile, just want to say thank you for those. I know a couple of you might have hit super chat along the way. I don't know if I got everybody. If you hit recently, that last Frank Scalera hitting super chat. Thank you, Frank. David Fuller hitting super chat. We got him, and I think we got everybody else. But thank you for those of you who have. And also, we've got 164 likes, so it'd be great if we can get to 200. So we got 36 to go. Make us happy, please, and get us to 200. So in the West, you got another low that's dropping southward off the West Coast. I'm just going to move it back. It's coming in now. It drops. You saw it on the satellite. It comes inland into the Pacific Northwest, but most of the energy drops down into California, all the way down into Southern California, more blue for Southern California. Meanwhile, you notice here, here's our primary low, which, by the way, the GFS back days ago was way too deep with it when it got into the Great Lakes, and the models have been picking up on that in the last couple of days, which is why we've been seeing this sort of colder flow here. Also, bear in mind, as I was talking, somebody had asked me about this today, talking about the wrapped up low, the wrapped up primary, and how is it that we're not getting all this warm air coming into the east, and there's no big high. Well, it's a low pressure map. Okay, if you look at the whole map and look at the pressures across the United States and southern Canada, it's really difficult to find a pressure above 10, 12 millibars. That's how low pressures are. So you have to kind of look at it in that respect. Yeah, it's not a 1045 or a 1050 high, but relative to the fact that we're in a low pressure environment, it works. Okay, so here's our low that's coming out in the Central Plains tonight with the severe weather. It's a ball of rain and thunderstorms. There's no snow around it. There's snow back up in the Rockies and in the Northwest, but that's separate from this. That low starts to head into Iowa. You begin to see a little freezing precip in Wisconsin, and it reaches peak intensity right now. It gets into a 981 low tomorrow morning in southwestern Iowa. It fills to an 85 by late afternoon in southern Wisconsin, and then into the low 990s by the time we get to tomorrow night. So that's some 89, 90-ish. At the same time, you do have a bit of a high that's building in southeastern Canada and over northeastern New England. Pressures are around 10, 20-ish. It's just enough. And there's just enough low-level cold air there in eastern Canada that it's getting wedged down into this low. Redevelopment is being forced by the fact that we do have a negative NAO, a negative North Atlantic oscillation in the North Atlantic. The blockingness is there, which is why this is happening. Otherwise, you would have taken a deepening low all the way across the lakes and up the St. Lawrence Valley, and we wouldn't even be having a 1
This
hour,
conversation,
right,
yeah.
this conversation, a show that's already 1 hour and 13 minutes long, which includes the crash in the middle. So that goes out. Energy from the west comes east. It's going to push a cold front through sometime on Thursday. You see it here with this low that's in New York State. Trailing front that runs down into Tennessee. Another low from more of that western energy that's coming in pieces, moves into New Mexico. Now we have a 1028-ish high there near Lake Winnipeg that moves east. And now this low starts moving east. Notice there's a low that forms off the coast of Maine and Nova Scotia as well. These are
Right.
all the players here. So I looked at this surface for Thursday evening. I thought, oh, well, this looks kind of interesting. Where the high is, where the low is, where the isobars are pointed. And yet somehow the GFS, I mean, Joe, I don't know. How many times have you seen a 983 low in northern Louisiana? It doesn't happen very often. I just wonder about this. That seems to me to be a tad overdone.
Yes.
And I wonder, and in spite of that, in spite of this really wrapped up low that's near Memphis, down to a 978 low in Memphis, there's a decent high in Quebec that's wedging cold air down, and we've got snow here Friday afternoon in North Jersey and in Long Island, and then it goes to ice and to rain because in this particular instance, the primary holds on. It's so deep that it does start to weaken pretty rapidly after that, and you do get a secondary. You see it there in northern Chesapeake Bay, but it goes basically right over New York City and Long Island. Now, I wonder because this goes out over, what if we wind up with something similar to what we just went? And I'm just throwing this out there. I got to look. I haven't looked at the upper air at all. And I need some time to analyze it. But what if we wind up with a similar situation here? What if the model is way overdone with this primary? It's way too deep. Okay, that it's going to be something less than that, and it comes out like much of like what the models were trying to do, like the European was trying to do yesterday, what the Canadian is doing today, where you get a much flatter, much weaker looking low. That high presses in a bit more because there's a little more blocking, and you force out something further south, more going underneath. I just think when I look at maps and when I see something that really is out of the ordinary, 983 lows in northern Louisiana outside of hurricanes that have come inland just don't happen very often.
No, they don't.
And nor do you see like a 978 pressure in northern Arkansas. I mean, when they get up toward the Great Lakes, yeah, okay, maybe in northern Illinois, northern Indiana, you go up into the Great Lakes, you get up into Lake Huron, Lake Ontario, et cetera. Okay, I could get that. I could say, we've seen. But this is a little suspect to me. I just wonder whether this is just models just kind of went a little bit nuts in doing this, and that we're going to wind up with something. That high is going to be more important, much like what we have now, and that you're going to have something that's going to try and go up that direction, and then come to a grinding halt because of the block and start to redevelop to the east. Just putting it out there.
Well, I will say this: the Storm Prediction Center on day 5. Now, what is day 5? Day 5 would be for Friday or Saturday. In any case,
Monday. Wait. Day 1, Sunday into Monday, Monday into Tuesday, Tuesday into Wednesday, Thursday into Friday.
Well, they have 30%. On day 5 now, they have a broad area of 30% for severe weather encompassing eastern Texas, much of northern and central Louisiana, southern sections of Arkansas, and on into central Mississippi. That's for day 5. And then for day 6, now how often do you see a day 6? But they've got it, day 6, which covers, well, it encompasses much of Georgia, Joe, much of your zone,
Right.
and also portions of western and central North and South Carolina, and a stripe of Alabama. What this tells me is that maybe they're not completely buying into the intensity of the low, but indeed, when you have a low as strong as what you've just pointed out, in the 970s or 980s, that far south, you have to have thunderstorm activity, and you probably have to have very significant thunderstorm activity. So it's probably why they've already outlined with, again, percentages as high as 30% on day 5, the chances for severe weather for Thursday, Friday, and Friday, Saturday. That's the cold front probably associated with that intense storm system that indeed is apparently heading up toward the Great Lakes.
Now, here's another thing. I just pulled up the upper air, for Friday morning. Very interesting upper air in my view. You've got look at the block the blocking high is building across Iceland, across Greenland, and into the Davis Strait. You've got a 50-50 low complex out east of Newfoundland. You also, and this is really important, if you remember back last Thursday, I was talking about how you could have the block, but if you don't have low heights, if you don't have some kind of vortex in eastern Canada to keep the southeast ridge from flying all the way up, you're going to have a problem. Well, take a look. We've got a little vortex here in Hudson Bay, sitting there, trapped between the block and the 50-50 low to the east. And here's that really vigorous southern system. Uh, I'm looking at this, Joe, and thinking, well, how is this going to lift up to the west if it's got the block to the north in Greenland and this vortex that's sitting in southeastern Canada? I think that argues. I think that kind of argues for the idea that you're only going to be able to lift this thing so far north because before it includes out early. It's going to lift so far north, maybe into the lower Ohio Valley, and then start redeveloping to the east, so that perhaps cold air could wind up being more important here.
Well, Joe, we've been going now for an hour and 20 minutes. I got to hand it to you. I mean, for somebody who's driven 500 miles and must be tired, the fact that we've done already 80 minutes of this, I think we've gone just about as far as we can go for the moment. And I think what we should do is you just close everything right now. We've got over 200 likes, 205 likes. Thank you all so very much for that. And just resume this conversation.
I won't argue with that. In fact, I was just thinking, I teased at the beginning of the show that we would do the Sunday night rant. So you know what?
Oh, yes. You want to hold that off until Monday? Although tomorrow night, Joe, we'll be right in the thick of things with the beginning or the start of this system. So maybe if you could do the Sunday night rant in an abbreviated form now, then we can get that out of the way, and we won't have to worry about it tomorrow night.
Let's see. I have let's see. Oh, I have this just in from Bill Goodman. He says, because I had asked him about. Now, you know what? I better not reveal this, because I asked the question as to why they didn't put up an advisory on Long Island, and he gave me an answer. I don't want to repeat it because I don't want to get him into trouble. Not that he said not that he said anything negative. He didn't. He just expressed the opinions of the management. You know how that whole disclaimer about does not reflect the opinions of the management of WCBS TV. Well,
exactly.
Sort of along those lines. So I'll save that for another time. Why don't we save the rant? Because the rant can wait until Tuesday, I guess.
Oh, all right.
In fact, it might be better because then we'll know the outcome. Then I may have more ammunition, or possibly less ammunition, when we get to Tuesday. So let's save it to Tuesday. I don't know who's got Briller Jeopardy. We could save that also for either tomorrow or Tuesday, depending on who's who's exhausted and who isn't.
Well, Hudson Valley Weather just asked a question earlier on the chat board. Do we think that the winter storm watch for Orange County will be upgraded. Currently, they're suggesting 5 to 8 inches. The thing about Orange County, and I've never been able to understand this, is why they haven't split Orange County or divided Orange County along the Interstate 84 corridor. Because as you go north of I-84 in northern Orange County, obviously more elevated and more inclined to get heavier snow amounts than, let's say, far southern sections of Orange County. Orange County covers a pretty big area of real estate. So I think the watch basically is there more for especially places in the north of Orange County. And I'm sure that they will probably, since they don't split like in Westchester County, since they don't do that in Orange County, they probably will upgrade to a winter storm warning. I think they just want to wait to see what the new run comes in with overnight tonight. But certainly it seems like,
They
4 to 6 inches.
I know, but if they wait any longer after that, they might as well wait till the end of the storm to put it up.
4 to 6 inches, I think, for Orange County is in the bag, except for north of 84 in northern Orange County, where in the 800 to 1,000 foot elevations, 6 to 8 seems like a pretty good number. And that's probably why, Joe, that the illusion by NWS Upton is for 5 to 8 inches. 5 probably for most of Orange County, and the 8 going for places north of 84. So there you go, Hudson Valley weather. That is what Moi's opinion is on that.
Okie dokie. All right, that's it in a nutshell. So look, we'll save it for Tuesday night. I'm exhausted. Have a good night. Sorry again for that mess in the middle of the show, but thankfully it didn't happen again, and hopefully it will not happen tomorrow. I'm going to do something tomorrow. I'm going to reboot my computer before the show starts, just in case there's some kind of bug in it. Okay.
Okay.
So good night, Joseph. Good night, everybody. And thank you for the likes, the super chat. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, folks.